All right, guys, it looks like we're live. It's Sunday, 5th of May 24. I'm talking about the English council elections and how they show the fall of the West is going as I feared. Because it would be nice if it's okay to say that the way the West is changing is going to be great. That's not going to end your career or anything like that. But if you're worried about it, you can become a total outcast or whatever. So I'm just looking at council elections and really it's showing the way things are going. And what's happened is what I would call the Trojan Labour Party. Although they've done well, they lost a lot of votes to quote, independents, especially in the north of England, who all happen to possibly own flags. If they own a flag, it's probably another country and South Asia or whatever. Yeah, and the sort of Trojan reason is Gaza. But I think this is going to happen anyway because sort of this grouping is a choice either to sort of integrate Labour and Labour's and women's and LGBTQT plus and everything else, or go identity. And in this case, because I think Gaza is sort of one way to look at it is maybe most of the people who feel they've got a connection with it. Maybe it's to do with, really, it's to do with ego and envy. Because a lot of countries around the world, to me, don't seem to be desirable to outsiders who don't want to move there, or even the people who live there, the ancestral homeland. It seems that ego is just totally out of control in a way that they can't even make a society function. And it seems like for these sort of countries, they want to move to places where they think ego is under control, which seems to be West Europe and the settler colonies, USA, Canada, New Zealand, Australia. And that seems to be about it, really. Maybe when they're thinking of these countries, they're thinking of them, they personally are thinking them along, they have a racist version of those countries, and that's why they're picking them and ruling all other countries out. Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, I think this is us starting to show in politics now, where Labour's no longer going to be a Trojan party, probably. And it seems that a lot of people, instead of voting Labour, they voted Greens, in places like Biker and Newcastle, which is I think it's a sort of quite a poor area, Biker Grove, basically, where Ant and Dake were from. And I think the demographics there have changed quite a bit over the last 20 or so years, so yeah, I think it's also so Green turned out to be another way of not voting Labour. And the Trojan reason was Gaza, but I think it's also to do with how things are going to go. Nigel Farage says sectarian politics are now in Britain and they're here to stay. I mean, if you want to call it sectarian, I would call it tribal, ethnic identity politics, not to do with everyone being one part of the United Kingdom and the way it used to be under Labour and Tory in the old days before the country changed. Now we've brought in a lot of people from countries that seem to be ego-based, that still seem to be undesirable to the people that live there and to people who want to move from their own homelands. I hear sometimes a lot of Irish politicians saying that the Irish have moved to all four corners of the world. Well, they haven't actually. They moved to settler colonies, the same that the people from the global south, as Hamza Youssef calls it, the same that they're moving to the settler colonies in West Europe. That's all they would consider. So Irish didn't move to four corners of the world. They didn't move to Africa or Asia, So the Irish politicians are being very, very misleading when they use that sort of thing. All right, I'm just looking at it. Anyway, I'm looking at these. I'll try to get this link to open. Nobody's watching anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. First of all, I'll look at the results. I'm looking at Twitter. Ben Walker, who I think runs Britain Elects, which I'm glad it's there, but it's all we've got. But it's not that great in my opinion, but it's all we've got, So yeah, I'm looking at Ben Walker's what he forecast and what happened, and I'm looking at seats because this is what I want to show you how Britain's changing. I would say Britain, we've been going downhill since 1948, since this great change. Humanity. I think humans have been officially humans for 350,000 years. But this change is happening, big change. Up to then it evolved, but now it's a big unnatural change over the last 75 years in Britain. And I'm looking at seats to see how it's changed. He forecast the Conservatives would lose 478 seats. Labour would gain 273. Lib Dems would gain 129. Greens would gain 52. And others, this is the big one, would gain 24. So I'm not really looking at this, well, Tories, they got it. They were down 474. The big one to me is Labour, because he said they would go 273. And basically he was thinking that newcomers to Britain would keep voting Labour and Tory, in my opinion. But they only get 186 seats. So for his forecast, I mean, that was like 60% out or something. No, 40% out. It was nearly half. So Labour really didn't do well. And this seems to have been in the inner cities, the wards, where there's been big changes over the last 75 years in demographics. And the Trojan reason is to do with Gaza, but I think it's just going to go identity reasons. The way the integration works, you could say they're going to reject that and go for Labour and Tory and stability, but no, it looks as if they're going to go identity, ego, and that's the way it's going. Because all this sort of hand pointing and stuff you were doing yesterday, can you imagine what would women's rights voters think if Keir Starmer was doing the body language that they do about the victory? You think about that way, who's either a Lib Dem, that guy as well. If they, had their, that sort of stuff. One of Green thing was even saying Allah Akbar, in Leeds. So the Lib Dems, he predicted, would get 129 seats. They get 104. So I think Lib Dems don't really matter anymore, basically, personally. They were always a sort of protest vote for Tories, really. But now Tories have got reform. The ones that used to go Lib Dem or whatever, I think. And then this is a big one. He thought Greens would get 52 seats, but they get 74. But I think a lot of them are sort of hidden Trojan ones for inner city wards that have changed a lot, but not enough that the people who have flags for other countries halfway around the world, if they own a flag, those sort of people, they didn't have an independent thing or a workers' party. George Galloway's the useful idiot, his party. So they went for Greens. And then this others, apparently the Workers' Party won 3 elections yesterday, 3 councillors, probably in concentrated wards, probably in the north of England. So this is a big one anyway. Others, Ben Walker thought others would get 24, but they get 110. So he's way out there by, 4 or 5 times nearly. And I think even though they're called independents, most of them happen to be of the same religion, and the areas of one are probably very concentrated, and they probably used to be Labour. In fact, a few of them were Labour councillors that have left recently, and the local community followed them. Possibly they were advised on Fridays as well to follow them, community acting as a block. So, and Workers' Party will be in there as well, the the Useful Idiots Party. Someday George was dumped again. He get dumped. He had to give up his seat in East London because he wasn't getting on with those sort of activists, or they were wanting more say or whatever, and he didn't like it. I think that's going to happen to him again, the Workers' Party. Probably people who feel George is a bit of an outsider, actually, when they have a stop to think of it. George is definitely a transient thing for them. Yeah, useful idiot. And they won't like a lot of his policies on social justice, I would imagine, either. So, yeah, that's how it went, like that. So he did get, yeah, that was Ben Walker of Britain Elects. And I'm going to go back and look at, I'm just looking, let's see, I've taken notes. In Birmingham, in the mayoral election for the West Midlands, the Yacoub guy got 69,000 votes. I think he got about 40,000 in Birmingham alone. And this is the West Midlands for the mayoral thing. And apparently this was a shock to people, some people. I think he got 6 or 7% of the vote, but he got a big chunk. And basically they're all voting identity. And if you look at his sort of Twitter and that, it's lots of poses, maybe women's activists would call them very macho poses. I mean, I don't know if he's posed with a well-fed lion or something like that, which is the sort of thing. I don't know how that all goes for women's rights and LGBTQ plus rights, I mean, he's an independent, and apparently the Workers' Party, George Galloway's offered him a chance to be a candidate for the general election, but he says he's not decided yet, and that's because he realises that George is a useful idiot and he doesn't need him, and he can form his own identity party that eventually George's group will leave George to go to this new identity party, But the one thing about this identity party, I mean, Britain's going to fracture into three ways. You're going to have the indigenous people, which are the former Labour, Tory, Lib Dem, SNP. You're going to have them. Then you're going to have a Matter Lives party at an umbrella level. And then you're going to have a Islamic party at an umbrella level. But these two parties will be like herding cats, because you'll have Somalian British and Pakistani British. The Somalians can go in either, really. But for example, and then the Matter Lives party that doesn't protest when there's stabbings down in London or whatever, the mothers don't go out to protest or anything like that. Yeah, you'll have Somalians, Nigerians, Jamaicans, British, all umbrella. But I would imagine them trying to work together. We don't know how that's going to go. Some might say it's going to be a Tower of Babel disaster, never seen before in humanity, because they've only become mixed in the West. They don't mix from their own places. Then you'll maybe have another party, I don't know, a Chinese party or British. But it's just going to split all the way identity, probably. For the other two, for the indigenous people, it's going to be sort of, I think that party will be strong in women's rights and LGBTQ plus, for example. Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go. But for now, we've still got stuck with this Labour Toryings, and people are acting as if things haven't changed. Women's rights are secure and all that. Yeah, so he got 69 keys. So some people are surprised he done so well. I'm not. I would guess in Fridays, people are telling them to vote for him on identity. He's not like George Galloway. He's the real deal, So that's the future for Birmingham, I think, or his party anyway. I mean, Birmingham's gone anyway, really. Yeah, and what other ones? Apparently Muslim independents get 50 plus seats in the north. I think somebody said this in Twitter. So these are all independents. I don't think they're even working with each other. It's just guys that stood, I'm guessing they're guys mostly. And the sort of Trojan reason is Gaza, but it's the way it was going to go anyway. These places are concentrated and they're going to say, we don't need Labour anymore for the Trojan Party. I mean, some could argue that Labour were needed for benefits and immigration policy, basically, an open door, really. And they're still needed for that, but now they're saying, I suppose this guy's, I think, sort of pushed their hand on the way they want to go, really. I mean, Labour would say that they're going to manage to integrate them back into Labour and integrate them back into the British values of Yvette Cooper and Jess Phillips and that, you know, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, these Muslim independents, I wrote that they didn't go for the Workers' Party, although they won 2. I think they won 3 seats. They fielded about 30 to 50 candidates, probably in the north of England. Another interesting thing is that Sunderland and Newcastle seem to be, they lost a lot, Labour lost a lot there, and I think quite a few went to Reform, and that Reform seems to be, that's one of their strongholds, and it is ironic that the neoliberal Reform, you know, their economic, I don't think these people identify with Reform's economies at all. They're just voting in immigration, basically, I think. The multiculturalism, the change in Newcastle and Sunderland. And it is ironic that I would regard these people as the light unto the natives, basically. This is the way the rest of the country should be going. And that was the same with Brexit as well, especially Sunderland. Sunderland was a Brexit thingy. And another thing ironic about Newcastle and Sunderland is that they had their council elections called around 2 a.m. on the day, Friday, whereas the rest of the country take 2 days almost. Definitely. So really they should be looking at how they're doing their votes really fast and the rest of the country isn't. I mean, personally, I think Thursday's a stupid day to have elections anyway, because a lot of people the workers are working, the retired aren't. So you really should hold it on a Saturday and Sunday. Maybe just start the counting even. You don't even have the overnight thing. Anyway, back to my main issue, which is the fall of Britain. We're now moving into stage 2 of terminal cancer. You know, stage 1, you feel all right, then you think, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe it's not terminal. But stage 2 is where things start to happen, where you realise, okay, this is terminal. And I think that's the stage we're now on in Britain for the fall of the West into anarchy. Yeah. Looking at the London mayoral election, Britain First were beaten by Count Binface. I think Britain First got 20,000 votes. Count Binface got about 24,000. I think Social Democrat Party got about 34,000, which they have a good policy on immigration, the most sensible of the normal parties. But it's a real shame that people aren't voting Britain First, because personally, I think if you care about women's rights and LGBTQ plus and that, it's probably the party you should be voting for as a protest vote. Forget all of that other. It's a single issue protest. It's about survival, really. But they didn't do well again. I feel that Britain First just don't get their message across in a way. I think that's speaking to the converted, you know. They need and I think they need to focus on maybe pointing out how women's rights and LGBTQ plus is going to go, you know, or potentially, because apparently Labour, Tory, and SNP feel that women's rights and LGBT plus are just going to go on a more liberal path. I don't really see it myself. Once Indigenous people are a minority, you know, I don't see it as guaranteed, especially from the places that people have come from, as Hamza would call it, the global south. But you add to that this second world, the former communist parties and Colombia, Venezuela. Yeah. Okay. Next year, this Greens, there was some, he was a mufti, which is to do with Islamic law. But for some reason, he became a Green candidate. I don't know how. And he in Leeds. He's 42. He was wearing, I don't know what you call them, a robe. all the traditional stuff that he identifies with. He said earlier, and he was about Gaza, Palestine. He didn't say one thing about climate change or social justice or women's rights or whatever. So I don't know if the Greens women leaders will be happy about that. I don't know. Yeah, and he was in the news, but anyway, that's the sort of thing the Greens are thinking. As I say, I think the Greens women voters will become the most hysterical and the most vociferous that we've got to reverse the situation, the path we're on. Um, I think that's what's going to happen on this single issue. So they'll be the most radical of the lot. And of course, once they've gone, Labour women will have already gone, SNP women, they'll all are already gone. But I think the Greens women voters are the ones that take their family to Disneyland, Florida on holiday and that. They're going to be the ones that are most stressed and anxious about what has to be done. They'll be for it. So let's look at what else I've got in my notes here. Yeah, biker in Newcastle, biker Grover, I think that is. I was looking in that. It's very hard to find a good website to get the demographics of wards, but the best one I've found is, which is pretty good actually, is citypopulation.d, which means it's in Germany. And ironically, that gives me a good for the wards. And I can find out a lot of information. It says it's taken it from the 2021 census. But yeah, this biker area, it went from, usually I think the telltale sign that a ward's in trouble is if the population's grown. If the population's grown, it's changing in a way that long-term women's rights, in a way that might mean that female genital mutilation might become more common than it is. I mean, we didn't have it at all before 1948 in Britain. Probably had very little up to the 1980s. But now it's a tradition, and someday I'm guessing they'll have politicians who support it, including Scottish MSPs. And when Nicola Sturgeon and that say to them that's not Scottish or no, that's not British, they'll be being racist when they say that because they are Scottish and British, and it's their British values. So yeah, so this is, if you use that as a sort of guidance, and if you look at country of birth and ethnic group, so for biker, the 2021 census says that 78% were UK born, and it's currently 78.4% white. But the other ones that stand out is it's 10.9% black, not that, but 4.5% Muslim. And then you can look at religion as well. Well, in this one, to me, we're all really atheists. All the Christians are really atheists, but a lot still call themselves Christian. 44.4%. Of course, we've got ones in Africa now that call themselves Christian, which personally I think they should be asking for reparations because the Christian Church stole their identity. But they don't seem bothered about that at the moment. But then Christian and atheist is like 44% Christian, 47% atheist. But that's not really. If this was 1948, I would say that's pretty good. Apart from there's another 12% or whatever, but this 40 is good. But now atheist can mean from anywhere in the world, the global south, or because a lot of people aren't bothered about it at all, although a lot of the women in their communities are. But, and then for the indigenous people, they're just calling themselves Christian. They aren't really Christian at all. They celebrate Christmas, they forget about Jesus and that. They get married in the church and buried in the church, but that's about it. So yeah, I would take that as a good sign, but you can't tell now. And like Biker, it seems to, yeah, well, it's 10.9% black. Well, it went for, it's right in the inner city of Newcastle on the Tyne. It went for from Labour to Greens, but I wouldn't take that as a good sign, really. It's probably a protest sign, probably a sign of things to come for Biker. It's just a transient stage. I'm not sure how that one would go then, though, because usually you would think it would be the Muslim, but as I say, Lives Matter is going to probably go the same. Matters Lives is going to go the same way. All these words as a very broad umbrella for a group of herded cats. You know, I think there'll be chaos internally, but yeah. So I just wanted to point Biker out. You know, I think a lot of the Green votes went that way. Sort of protest vote against Labour. It's not that people there, a lot of them. Of course, I think the local Indigenous, it probably is. They're voting in social justice and probably do as a to do with identity and how we're going to go to anarchy and chaos. Yeah, just Nigel Farage. He said this before, especially looking at Leicester. Sectarian politics are here to stay. That's his quote, really. Yeah. And then, because looking at Manchester, Labour lost a lot of seats there to independents, quote independents, who all happen to have heritage of Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc. Probably India as well. But, the Manchester deputy leader of Labour, the Labour guy, who is Bengali heritage. I think he is actually Bengali. He was born there in 1980. He lost his seat to the Workers' Party. So, someone that the locals could have voted there. I think that area is very concentrated Muslim area, and he's lost it to Jolly's Workers' Party. It's probably someone that they could identify with South Asian heritage, and so George is the useful idiot. Workers' Party being used there. Maybe someday they'll kick George out and keep the party and change it to another name, you know, more suitable. Yeah, kick out any George has about women's rights and that. I don't know if that will happen or not, but it's up to women's activists if they think that. The dancing ladies of Care for Kelly. Okay, on for no. Early results. This is what people have wrote on Twitter. One of their biggest surprises were the early results like Sunderland, Reform surging, and South Tyneside, Labour plunging. Yeah, like I say, Sunderland's the leader for Reform, really. It's probably their stronghold. And I doubt these people identify at all with their economic policy. It's just Sunderland has changed. I see a lot of news stories, crime news stories now that Sunderland that makes it obvious that it's changed. And probably they don't like it, you know. What do they call them again? You've got the Toons of Newcastle and you've got the... I would have known this a couple of years ago, I forgot. But yeah, Sunderland's changed a lot, as is Glasgow and Edinburgh and Cardiff, Bristol. Okay, someone else said, yeah, and the person said Tyneside, Labour plunging. I couldn't find Tyneside word. I think they mean the whole inner cities of Newcastle, really. Labour, I think, probably finished it. I don't know who the people were voting for, whether it was Muslim independence or whether it was Greens or Reform. He didn't say. And then somebody else said Labour winning 0 seats in South Shields and only 4 across the entire South Tyneside Authority. So there you go. Newcastle and Sunderland are personally, I think they're probably the beacons of women's rights and LGBTQT plus. I could be wrong about that, you know, but not unless that's if they're voting for reform and stuff. If they're voting Trojan Green or an independent of a certain type, then no. But if they're voting Reform, then yes. Not that I like Reform, I don't like them at all, but they're a good protest vote. That's what you've got to do now. Forget it's a single issue protest voting. Yeah, on to the next person. Greens winning a seat in Bolton with barely any campaign. Yeah, this is another thing I was saying. Like, I think this will be, you know, they haven't got a Muslim independent to vote for, so they're voting for Green. Don't know. I thought they would have voted for Workers' Party. Maybe they weren't standing there, but they're voting Green instead. I mean, it might be Indigenous people. I don't think so, but maybe with barely. So the Greens won a seat there in Bolton with barely any campaign. I think that was a Green person saying this. So they were keeping it. Bolton is a very weak area for us. The candidate was a well-known Muslim community activist I spoke to soon. It was just a protest vote for a concentrated area, not a protest for an identity vote. And then they're suddenly thinking, hang on, we don't need to vote Labour anymore. They'll be in two minds because they're thinking of Labour as they make the economy function at least, and they'll be thinking the benefits and immigration, but what they want to really do is vote identity. So, unless they want to integrate, which is on somebody else now says just how hidden and yet how significant the drop in Labour vote is in places like Bradford, Blackburn and Bradford, etc. I mean, who is surprised? This is a shock. People will be surprised. I mean, Labour, top Labour brass will be surprised. I don't know how. I mean, looking at the way these countries are from where they originate from, it's 2024 and still it doesn't seem desirable for them to say return there. You know, they're not thinking, well, they've got heat. It's a warm country. It's beautiful. Why don't we just move back? Because it seems really well balanced there now, or whatever. It doesn't seem to be the way they're thinking. When you try to deport anyone there, I mean, that guy from Rochdale gave up his Pakistani citizenship, renounced it so that it could stay in Rochdale. You know, beautiful, warm Pakistan where everyone agrees with him. Looks like him, it's not for him. You know, nobody ever speaks about this. What is it that's undesirable about these countries in 2024? You know, yeah. So the next one I'm looking at. Someone said the gap between Can and Hall only being 9% when polls suggested 22. Yeah, I think Hall was about 34%. Can was about 43 or something like that. So he was below 50, even though he was expected to, I think. Oh no, yeah, he was meant to get more than 50. But in first past the post, the winners don't bother because all they're bothered about is getting one vote more. They're not really bothered. And on to the next one. Greens 200% increase. Like I say, a lot of that will be identity Trojan voting. Especially like the Greens are good in Palestine. They're fair in Palestine. I'll give them that. But that's not why the people are voting. Maybe in a lot of constituencies it might be actually candidates that identify with them as well. In fact, I'll look at the biker one to see who the candidate was. I mean, when people think of Newcastle, think of Geordies, but I guess you're being racist thinking of that now. Being uninclusive. Biker Ward by-election result from Newcastle website.gov. They used to, it's not that long, probably 5 years ago, they would have been late with these results. Usually they're the last place to look. Who was an Indigenous person? Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? Baker Ward. Thursday, March the 2nd. Yeah, this is the last time. I just can't believe how they're behind. That's ridiculous. I'm going to have to look at the Newcastle paper website, but I've quite a look at all of them. I'll look at the Newcastle results anyway. Arthur's Hill, the Greens one. No, Labour one. Labour hold. Bale and Scotsford. Labour hold. Blakelow. Labour hold. Baker. Green game from Labour. That was Nick Catley, so it was a Indigenous guy, still won anyway. Yeah, won by quite a bit. Let's see, Labour hold. Labour gain from Lib Dems. Independent hold. So who's independent? Lawrence Halter, Hunter. Don't know, that's a bit. Liberal Dem hold. Newcastle Independents hold. Green gain from Labour. Ellswick. And that was Khalid Mashaf. So he would have appealed to probably a good chunk of that, maybe. And he beat the Labour Niku Lawn or Niku Ion. 1,190 votes to 1,083. So by 107 votes, the Green. Another candidate was Hamid Agajani for the Lib Dems. So I think Ellswick's probably changed quite a bit. Newcastle's really braced multiculturalism, or at least their politicians have. I'll check Ellswick. I can't find it actually. I've got an Ellswick in Little Eccleston, but that's the other side of it. That's West England. I'll try again. I'm on citypopulation.d. This is a good place to find the words. Here we go. I know. Well, I need to look through all the metropolitan areas. Ellswick. Oh, it's not telling me. No, it doesn't seem to know. I'll give it one last chance. Nah, I can't find it. So I think we can take it for granted. I think it's on the river. It looks like everywhere on the rivers is sort of maybe in a city, Newcastle. And it's probably all changed a lot over the last 20, 30 years. Lib Dem hold both seats. This is another place. And there's Conservative gain from Liberal Democrat. So this is Gosforth. Maybe they're seeing how things are going. Doc Anand. What kind of name is that? Let's see if we can. That's the candidate for the Tories. Yeah, so someone may probably appeals to newcomers of a certain community. I don't know what one. But surprising still that the Tory. It's the first Conservative of Newcastle's first Conservative since 1992. But we don't know why. It was maybe it was to do with the of no insane. That's the other thing. Nobody ever tells you. You're left guessing. Okay, I'll go back. Heaton and Labour hold. Labour hold. Labour gain from Newcastle Independents. Lib Dem hold. Labour hold. Liberal Dem gain from Labour. Labour hold, Lib Dem hold, Labour hold, Labour hold, Labour hold. Lib Dem gain from Labour. It's a bit surprising that they're losing some Lib Dems. Maybe it's Tories doing protest votes. Yeah, Labour hold. Well, I'll get back to that thing, my original notes, because there's quite a lot. Let's see. Yeah, the Tories winning their first councillor in Newcastle one time since 1982, but that might be to do with identity. I don't know. And someone else is saying the 60 to 70% majority across the whole country for the none of the above party. Yeah, that's amazing. It's like 70% of people don't vote. I mean, I think you should be able to vote electronically, by mobile phone or internet, and you should be able to change your vote up to the last minute. Yeah, that's the way it should be. I don't know why it isn't, because people do all their banking online. Why can't they vote? On to the next point. Hamas taking a big chunk in Oldham. Well, by that he means Muslim independent parties, I guess. Yeah, Oldham, I think's gone to Labour, apparently. Yeah, on to some other notes I took. Yeah, Women for Refugee Women. This is some sort of thing in London, and they had a candidate standing in 5may, and she was an Indigenous lady, young lady, youngish, in her 30s, middle 30s, see. Breaking. Women are being targeted for forced removal to Rwanda. This is a tweeted on. Around 8 women have received notices of intent and have been detained at Yarl's Wood. They have already survived traumatic experiences and were trying to rebuild their lives in the UK. And then I could add in brackets, as they rolled out many continents and would only consider West Europe and the settler colonies of America, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. Okay, close brackets. Some were detained as they went to report to the Home Office as usual, i.e. they're all here illegally. All they have are the clothes they were detained in. Yeah, and apparently this youngish Indigenous lady won Hatch, Warren and Beggarwood, and the result was Stacey Hart was elected with 1,659 votes, 61.6% of the vote, gaining the seat from Conservatives. I think I took a look at this one, and it didn't look as if it looked as if it was still pretty 1947-ish. So I guess the women there all went out inspired by the dancing ladies of Care for Cali and their former founder who they kicked out, who had an affair with a young Tunisian man who then set fire to their camp or something. I don't know. And where is that Tunisian man now? He's a British citizen in Bolton with a partner from Greece and a baby. I don't know if he probably did marry her, maybe he can be EU citizenship. It'd be interesting to see how that marriage lasts. He says now he just wants to go on with his life, So I don't know if the voters would be inspired by the dancing ladies of Cali, of Care for Cali. Yeah, I'll take a look. Population. Oh no, I can't get. Yeah, country of birth UK 85%. So it's gone quite a bit. The other one is EU 5.6%, but you've got Middle East and Asia 5%. Ethnic group white 88%. Religion Christian 48%. None 46%. So that is a sort of odd one. Don't know what's happened there because it seems that the part she was standing for is solely for refugee women. Really, that's what they campaign about. If you want to follow them, it's something at 4, the number 4, refugee women. Seems to be all they talk about. And the next thing I'm looking at, Sky News made a a guess at how the general election would go from these results. And Britain elects in that series sort of projections are no use from councils because councils are so mixed up. But personally, it wouldn't surprise me. Uh, Labour would be 30 seats short of the majority. And that's a surprise to me because I think they're a soft vote. But now they've lost a lot of the Muslim vote and because of Gaza. But it's really, that was going to happen at some point, but Gaza's just forced it. And as I say, I think it's more to do with ego. They're concerned about Gaza rather. They don't worry about Muslims in Syria or anywhere else. I think ISIS mostly killed Muslims because they couldn't get any white Westerners really. They only got a few. And of course, Brits went to join ISIS as well. And I'm imagining their communities, we don't know if they're rejected by their communities or well loved, well respected now. We don't know. So Labour, because I think their vote's very soft. It's just so 294 seats. They reckon they would have. You need about 326 for a majority. Conservatives would have 242, so that's way better than they're predicted at the moment. Because people are saying they might be in single digits. When you think of the Vet Cooper and that was saying that Corbyn done terrible in 209. But the Tories under William Hague were like 156 or something. And they're projected in the moment to be like 96 or something. But this Sky News thing from the council thing saying 242. Lib Dems 38, so they would be up 30. But in the past they've been up at 60, so they're still tiny, Others 66. Well, that'll be SNP, but there may be a way down as well. They'd be like, someone was saying 15 seats or something, I don't know. At the moment they're about 45. But we don't know who does. I think there'll be a lot of independents, new independents, like the Workers' Party, Reform maybe, and maybe identity independence from our Global South community. 66, so that's plus 7. So that includes SNP. Clyde Primary have hardly any. I think they've got about 4. But then you get the Northern Irish ones. I think there's about 16 of them or something. So, but apparently Britain elects and says that these are no use, these projections. Personally, I think it's more likely than the ones that they're actually using because Labour's vote's so soft. And also now we've got this Others party, especially to do with identity, especially Global South. So that's my thoughts on that. Yeah, I just wanted to say people are naive and still thinking it's Tories versus Labour. This is what I can't understand. They're voting as if it's 1947 and women's rights are secure. Female genital mutilation isn't going to become a British tradition. For a religious leader not to shake Princess Kate's hand has no ramifications long term. And Nicola Sturgeon wearing a sort of small thing on her head to go to view a mosque as requested by the men leaders. So I think people are still naively still voting as if Britain's still the same and we're still in that spectrum. But we've got an undercurrent. As I say, we're in stage 2 terminal cancer. And I think these elections have taken us into stage 2, basically. Because now people are getting power, especially in concentrated areas. Because we're not concentrated, because we've got a first past the post system, it's taking them this long to get going. Yeah, and I'm just looking at the Workers' Party for Britain. So this is George's, the useful idiot, Muslim Trojan Party, which George might get kicked out of at some point. There's no longer any use to them. Yeah, they had about 50 candidates, I would say. Maybe not as many as that, maybe 30. Let's look at the names. Ahmed Khalil, Ed Willard, Sajid Pradhan, Omar Shafiq, Syed Muarif Hashmi, Shabiz Imtiaz Shamim, Iftikhar Ahmed, Liza Rodi, Shakir Sagia, Mohammed Irfan, Syed Atur Rahman, Chowdhury Mutin Bila, Mohammed Iqbal, Shabazz Sarwar, Nazneen Hussain, Tanvir Math, William George Jarrett, Gordon Bell, Boris Fedorov, Rob Pitch, William Hearth, Jamil Akhtar, Thomas James Byrne, Farouk Ahmed, Amer Nazir, Harun Nawaz Khan, Uzair Mahmood, Minam Elahi, Rishadi Jordan, Sana Aziz, Salaya Begum, Ali Shahid, Umar Malik, Odell Shireen, Peter Seddon, Wahib Akbar. And just looking at these, I think someday they'll just kick George out. We don't need you anymore. Or move to their own party. I'll just look at the ones that won were Shakir Sagia in the Park Ward. Don't know where that's. Probably North England. Shabazz Sarwar, Longsight region. And the other one that won was Farouk Ahmed in Central Rochdale. I got a fourth one. Minam Elahi, Milkstone and Deeplish, that one. Yeah, that was it. And I look at the others, had done quite well. Omar Shafiq had done well in Queen's Park Central, 842. Sajid Path had done well in Halton, he got 546. Ed Wheeler had done poorly in Bournemouth and Selly Park, he only got 138. Shabazz Imtiaz Shamim got 962. Let's see anybody else. Mohammed Irfan done well. Syed Atur Rahman done pretty well. Mohammed Iqbal in Leavensholm, that's part of Manchester. He got 1200, so he couldn't have been far off. Nazneen Hussain in Rusholm, that's Manchester as well. He got 823. Tanvir Math in Wallarange, that's Manchester, 669. William George Jarrett in North Shields, he done badly, he done 167. Gordon Bell in Whitley Bay, he done badly, 174. Boris Fedorov in Temple Kelly, he done very badly at 31 votes. Rob Pitch done badly, 89. Jamil Akhtar in Bamford, he gets 794, so he done quite well. I think you sort of get the idea. Harun Nawaz Khan done well, 811. And Wahid Akbar in Bedfordshire Police Commissioner vote, he got 8,396, so that was quite a lot. Yeah, just goes to show you, I think, how it's going to go. George has just been a temporary thing. Yeah, I'll just look at, here's this thing about the Leeds candidate for the Greens. He's made the Daily Mail my favourite mainstream newspaper, although I'm maybe even drifting away a bit. Daily Mail and Daily Express. Yeah. Let's see what it says. So this is ironic. The Greens, of all people, a Greens candidate shouting Allah Akbar and saying absolutely nothing about the environment. This is the moment a Greens party councillor shouted Allah Akbar after being elected to Leeds Council as he declared a victory, a win for the people of Gaza. Mothin Ali, 42, who won the Kipton and Harehill seat with 3,070 votes, said in his rowdy victory speech, people are fed up with being let down by the Labour Council. He shouted, "We will not be silenced. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar." Throughout the video, there's arguing between the Green members and the other parties at the count, with people we heard swearing and told to shut up. Mr. Ali, who regularly posts videos on his TikTok account, said his phone had been ringing off the hook since the win. There was one white guy amongst his crew, and that was it. No women that I could see. Mr. Ali is a qualified mufti, which is a Muslim legal expert who is impaired rulings on religious matters. The accountant has lived in the Kipton and Harehill ward for 20 years and has a wife and 3 children. I wonder if that means he's been in the UK for 20 years. He was one of dozens of candidates who were on a Gaza ticket at the local election and managed to defeat a Labour candidate. Despite gains of the Tories in the local election, Labour lost control of Greater Manchester town Oldham after gains by independence. So they lost Oldham after gains by, quote, independence. I think that means Muslim independence. They didn't even stand as one party by the looks of it. Some of them had abandoned Sir Keir's party over Gaza. Yeah, quite a few of them were ex-Labour councillors who happened to a big local community who would identify with them. Nahida Gultasib held her seat in the Plec ward of Walsall. The politician was one of 6 Labour councillors in the local authority who quit the party in November over Sir Keir Starmer's refusal to back a ceasefire in Gaza. She said in her victory speech, "This is for Gaza, this is for Palestine. You showed Labour that they cannot take your vote for granted." Ahmed Yaqub, a pro-Palestinian independent candidate running for West Midlands mayor, secured nearly 20% of the vote in the Birmingham area. Labour support plummeted in areas with a high Muslim population across the country. Wards and council areas with the highest proportion of Muslim voters, such as Blackburn, Bradford, Pendle, Oldham and Manchester, showed Labour support dropped by an average of 25%. Wards with Muslim populations higher than 10% in Pendle saw Labour support decline on average by 43%. The electoral results could be a cause of concern for Mr Starmer, as the hemorrhaging of votes could cost him valuable seats at this year's upcoming general election. The Labour leader has faced calls to change his policy in Gaza to win back Muslim support, and it has understood members of the Shadow Cabinet will raise the issue with him again in the coming days. But I don't know, really. I think what's going to happen is that now these communities, the concentrated communities, they feel, well, we want Labour for benefits and immigration and stability, but we really are an identity parties. We always have been. That's how we've integrated. So really, we'll just do that and hope that the country still functions. You know, I think that's the way it's going to go. I don't think that we go back to Labour. I could be wrong about that, because they could be worried about benefits and immigration and stability. Not that we're going to have stability anyway. We're a Titanic about 100 miles off from the iceberg, really, So, yeah, this is just a sign of the way things are going to go in my opinion. The Greens, the females, and the dancing ladies of Care for Cali, they feel it's going to be a women's rights and LGBTQ plus rights utopia. Yeah. So, I'll just look. I think I've looked at this already. I've got one final note from Sky News, which I don't usually like, but I wanted the final results. Oh, it's Daily Express. No, it's quite good. I don't seem to have kept I can't find the full results. No, that's all my notes anyway. As I say, like, if you're worried about this, if you think, basically, in my opinion, if you want to stop female genital mutilation becoming more and more traditional in Britain, more common, you need to vote Tory or further right, preferably Britain First, or in the left Social Democrat Party. You need to abandon Labour, SNP, Lib Dems, and that. That's my opinion. I could be totally wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I'm just saying this because I feel that it's not going to work, and I feel that it's more likely that we're going to be an anarchy than a utopia. So that's what I think. Okay, that's me for now. Goodbye.